Alrighty, folks. Well, we are officially live with the new Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show. Happy Saturday with Week 1 of the high school football season officially in the books. I'm Rock Anushi. He's Jared Kozar. And, yeah, just as you can tell, you're looking at us now. Faces for radio, no more, I guess, right?
Much
Faces
to
for
the chagrin
television.
of anybody that's tuned in right now. Yeah, they're looking at us, and we're looking back and trying to figure out exactly what was going on in a loaded Week 1. So today's format might be a little different than you're accustomed to with the Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show, and Rocco and I are going to take you through that during this hour and just kind of unfold some details of what's to come and how you're going to interact with this format, and we'll have a regular full complement show coming your way to start next week, but a busy Week 1 certainly.
Yeah, obviously, we'd love to be able to do this show as we always have with our winning coaches from the night before and just kind of getting a nice flavor for what they saw on Friday nights. It is always great to have that coaching point of view, but want to get that fine-tuned and everything before we bring our guys in and put them in front of the camera and everything like that. So bear with us. Again, this will get bigger and better as the season moves on. But, again, just thrilled to be able to bring you another edition of the Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show. So as we always do, Jared, why don't we just start with a whip around, with our scoreboard. You can see the ticker if you guys are watching on the bottom of our screen. I think that's a nice feature of the new streaming equipment and gear that we've kind of set up here on the new WEOL.com. So, if you miss us at the top of each hour with where our usual, scoring recaps are at, that's quite okay. You can just follow along with the ticker on the bottom of the screen right there. So I'll kick things off here, Jared, in the SWC, and we can certainly, we will talk about a number of these games, with an individual fashion to it. Avon defeating St. Ignatius on Thursday night with the season lid lifter here on WEOL.com and on the Chronicle Telegram YouTube channel. 40-14 was the final. You guys were amidst a sea of media members over there in Eric Frombach land in Avon, as that was certainly a thrilling matchup on Thursday night. Again, congrats to the Eagles and Mike Elder. They begin their state title defense in dominating fashion over the Wildcats. Another set of Wildcats, this time victorious last night over at Elyria. It was Mayfield that came into town, knocked off the Pioneers 20-3. You were over at Westlake last night with Rob Polinsky and Tommy Evans as Midview throttled the Demons 48-14. I'm very curious your thoughts on that one as we're able to break that one down a little later on in the show. How about Amherst knocking off Sandusky in big-time fashion, 48-6? This one was played at Avon Lake as Amherst puts the final touches and final everything on the stadium renovations over there. But a 48-6 win for Tom Thome and his Comets. How about that? Maybe the game of the night last night, and just in terms of competitive nature and how things shook out at the end. Strongsville knocking off Avon Lake. The Mustangs get a home win in Week 1. 43-42 was the final score. Aiden Stewart had a monster game. I believe he actually scored what could have potentially been the game-tying touchdown basically at the horn. They go for two. They don't get it. That's kind of the roll of the dice that you get with that situation. Unfortunately for Matt Kostelnik and his guys, it doesn't pan out this time. So, again, Strongsville gets the win 43-42. North Ridgeville, this is kind of a staple for them in Week 1, it seems, right? A rout of North Olmsted, 41-0, the final this time around. Two more here in the SWC. Berea Mid-Park knocks off Brunswick 28-7. Michael Keefe, Chad Meyer had that one for us. Our Medina County matchup, Stream 3 on the WEOL network. And then Menor knocks off Olmsted Falls 35-28. Another really good game. That one was at Olmsted Falls, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
But the Bulldogs unfortunately fall to Menor 35-28 as Menor looks to repeat as conference champs.
And you talk about consideration for game of the night in SWC action, not conference play, but certainly Avon Lake featured heavily in their matchup with Strongsville. And that's a home and home with Menor and Olmsted Falls, and that one did not disappoint. We've heard Falls is really, really good this year. Menor obviously a perennial power, and for them to go toe-to-toe for basically that one came down to the last minute and a half from what I understand in updates and what we recovered from that game. So certainly the Bulldogs kind of picking up where they left off last year in terms of being a power in the SWC. Let's check out some Lorain County League action. Thursday night, we mentioned we got the lid lifter started early. You were over at Brookside University School, took it to the Cards, 42-0. That was our Stream 2 game on Thursday night. So we already had two in the books before play started up yesterday. Just the kind of stuff that we can do here on WEOL.com and bringing you more coverage, expanded coverage, and making sure that that's all taken care of. Hillsdale got the better of Black River 42-14. That was a big number that I saw early, and maybe wasn't necessarily surprised by, but you just think, well, Hillsdale's tough, and they put it to them early and never really looked back. Edison got the better of Firelands 42-6, and for the Falcons, they've opened with Edison the past few seasons, and that's been tough sledding for the folks over there in Henrietta Township.
It's a great program in Edison.
It really is. And
they've got things clicking right now.
Yeah, and I think last year they went on the road back-to-back. It was Edison and then Poland Seminary, and so, is there...
That's brutal.
Yeah, but I think that's what Coach O'Rourke says is that, the non-conference is going to pave the way for what we want to do, and maybe that's the key again in terms of getting this started. It's not easy. You meet with adversity, figure out how to overcome it. Speaking of overcoming, Columbia blanks Independence 30-0. Mike Rice and company with the shutout to start the season. Keystone all over Northwestern 39-0 in a game that they were up 20-0 at the half, and I thought to myself, I know the Northwestern program has fallen on a little bit of hard times recently, but that was at one time, when you think about those schools in Wayne County, right around the top there, and they would do battle and really give our schools even a punch above their weight sometimes. They would get a mid-view here and there, and they'd be able to hang with them. So, we'll just see what's going on there. A valiant effort by Cody Kea and the Clearview Clippers comes up short at Fairview, 39-26, trailing most of that contest. They didn't go away. So, not the result you want in week one, but the point is that the Clips came to play, but they fall to the Warriors, 39-26. Oberlin looking for some answers. Wycliffe came into town and blanked them 48-0. At some point, the light's going to go on there. They're going to put one together. It just wasn't meant to be last night as they were defeated soundly. And Western Reserve gets the better of Wellington by a score of 45-6. The Dukes have opened up with Reserve. That's been a few times in recent memory. So it's a good matchup. It's fairly local, but they've got to find a way to get in the winning column there.
So as far as our other conferences go, Bishop Hartley knocks off Elyria Catholic down in Columbus. 55-42 was the final score there. A high-scoring affair, no doubt about that. It was kind of a late surge there from Chase Ferris and his Panthers, but unfortunately they fall to Bishop Hartley. I believe they're the Hawks down there in Columbus. Again, 55-42 was the final. How about those Sailors? Let's go sailing, Jared, up in Vermilion. Coach Bill DeFucci and gang getting a big-time Week 1 win over Margaretta, 21-20. That one always seems to be a really good lid lifter for both sides. I mean, that's been a really competitive game the last couple of years now between those two.
Anytime they get together in anything, it really is. And but yeah, you think about the magic of Vermilion last year and the season that Bill DeFucci and company put together, and you to welcome in Margaretta this time, and that was one I think Vermilion was up at the half, and clearly was able to hang on for the 1-point win, but it's just good to see that happening over in Sailor Country, riding the momentum of last year's success and being able to take control of the home opener.
Yeah, so many benchmarks were hit last season, right? Getting that that playoff win, that home playoff win. Just so many different things went right last season for Vermilion. So I think the theme for their season is, stay hungry. We talk about that with the guys I have on my shirt right now, the Guardians, and they haven't done a good job of that this summer so far.
Not the past two contests.
Yeah, no, that the odd year curse, I guess you can start calling it now for our Guardians. My gosh.
I don't know if I'm going to go that far, and we can get into this a little bit more as the show carries on, but it's just that, last night, I don't know if anybody paid attention, but that was a walk-off after they had taken the lead there, and you felt when Ramirez drew the chalk, you needed to get more out of that at bat, because clearly that was something that that Texas had not played quite right, and that would have been a bases clearing triple, I thought, just by watching that. I'm like, how did that runner not score? What happened? What led to that? You needed to come away with 4 there, and you didn't do it, and it just seemed to just be indicative of what's gone on the past 8 days or so for the Guardians.
So Vermilion trying not to be the 2025 Guardians, essentially.
Switching gears.
No, like you said, well, we can definitely dive into the old Gardos a little more later on. Maple Heights, this one was a little surprising, I thought. They beat up on Lorraine 42-16. It was the final score there. So Maple Heights maybe much improved. I know Lorraine lost a lot from last year's very successful team, but certainly an impressive opening win for Maple Heights. Some Medina County scores here for you as well. How about Larry Laird and his Battling Bees? A tough campaign last year. year for them, considering the success they had consistently years prior to that. But they pick up a Week 1 win down in Summit County. They knock off Stowe 21-13, the final there. Wadsworth, Justin Todd and his Grizzlies, man, that is a well-oiled machine down there in Grizzly country. They throttle Barberton 55-7 was the final score there. How about Buckeye blanking Cloverleaf 41-0? I thought that one might play out a little bit differently, but Buckeye, man, I'll tell you what, picking up right where they left off last year. And Highland, they travel a state over, but they bring a consistent brand of football with them, even if they cross state lines. They go to Erie and just destroy McDowell. 49-9 was the final score there. So we've got some really good Medina County teams this season, Jared. I think kind of a three-headed monster there. Wadsworth, Buckeye, and Highland all poised for, I think, what will be big-time success for those respective programs this season.
Sure, absolutely. When you look at what they did last year and to build off of that, and you mentioned Larry Laird and the Battling Bees, getting off of the right start 1-0. I think that you don't want to call it a rebuild because you just don't know how things go with him. I mean, he's certainly got the reputation that would precede him to say, I don't rebuild, I reload.
Right.
And I think that that's probably what's going to go on. That Stowe program has been good over the years. So, we'll get a good look at Medina as the season goes on, but don't count them out. And certainly Black River, yesterday, I don't know if that's indicative of how their season will go in terms of the 42-14 loss to Hillsdale. So Black River, Kyle Clark and company usually tend to turn it on 4 games into the season. Once they get in conference play, they put the hammer down.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's kind of a look around the county, both Lorain and Medina counties in terms of our scores. And again, you can follow along with the ticker right at the bottom of your screen there, right here on WEOL.com and on that Chronicle Telegram YouTube channel. Just keep up with the scores throughout the duration of the show. And just do want to show you, since we can have the camera, right, the Blitz Week 1, it is out. So, our weekly recap from the Friday night action. Our guys and girls do a great job of putting this thing together for the next morning in terms of the reporting, the score collecting, lots of interesting stats and numbers within this thing. So make sure you pick up a copy of the Blitz right here this morning. Also, we can show you, again, since we got the camera in front of us, the all-new Forecast magazine, done a little bit differently this year, right? Not in the traditional magazine sense, more of that tab format this season, but I think this thing looks fantastic. Kristen Bauer, Ed Betzel doing a fantastic job putting this one together. You got the cover, Nolan Good, right? The Golden Helmet Award winner. You got the Avon Eagles lifting up the state championship trophy right here, and on the back, you got the broadcast schedule. So if you're trying to find out where our Ugly Mugs will be each and every week this season, or if you want to try to avoid us, whatever you're trying to do, you can find out right here on the back. And then, of course, inside you've got team previews, all that good stuff. So make sure you pick up a copy there. And also, be remiss if I didn't promote the football tab. So different than the Forecast magazine, but still, again, more preview information in here. Great cover work here done by our team here. So, again, all the preview and non-preview information, recap information, I guess, from Week 1 available. Just make your way over to a Chronicle Telegram newspaper, and you'll be in pretty good hands.
And when you think about all those pieces that you just mentioned, Rocco, they're all complementary. They're companion products when you look at that. And I was telling folks out at the fair throughout the week that, once we were being able to deliver these products to our fair location, which you want to stop by today and tomorrow, as the Lorain County Fair wraps up, we'll have people out there ready to help you out, provide you with this, but they really do complement each other. The preview and the forecast look like they are meant to go together. It is Avon-centric. Let's face it, Avon won a state title. You don't have that happen every year, so we want to be able to feature that and celebrate that into the fall, and it's a really good thing. You mentioned the Blitz. That should be something that you interact with each and every week in terms of keeping up what's going on. Some folks use a running tally, really, and you can complement that with the forecast. I've had somebody come up to me at the fair yesterday and explain, yeah, I get this, and each week I update the win-loss records for every team. And I said, wow, the only person I knew that did that outside of yourself was our very own Tim Alcorn at one point. He kept the running tally in the studio that said Alcorn's copy, do not touch, under threat of death.
Yeah, I would assume it was properly labeled as such.
Yeah.
So. Oh, that's funny. So, yeah, make sure you stop out at the Lorain County Fair. If you can't, find a copy of the Blitz, the football tab, the Forecast magazine, or Forecast tab, whatever you want to call it, it's all available for you. Make your way out to find a copy of that CT. I do also want to thank our sponsors, not only for this morning's wrap-up show, but for hopping on board with us at the early stages of this new season, right? Nick Abraham, Elyria Ford, EcoTree Services, Valley Chevrolet in Wellington, and then Stewart's TV and Appliance right here in Elyria. Just I mentioned it on the broadcast last night. I know you guys talked about it Thursday. A lot of trust they're putting in us, right, with this new product, this new format. So really just want to appreciate the folks at those respective sponsors for hopping on board with us to make things possible to start our new coverage season here with high school football. So why don't we step aside, take a quick break. When we come back, we can dive into some of these individual games that went on. I'm sure you've got some thoughts from both last night at Westlake and then the night before over at Avon as they beat up on St. Ignatius. I can talk about that Mayfield-Elyria game a little bit. And, yeah, we'll just try to have some fun here. We'll go till about 10 o'clock here this morning. We are live here at the Chronicle Telegram in our studios, so to speak, right? So, again, we'll step aside. We'll be right back with more of the Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show. You guys are watching live on the brand new, all-new WEOL.com, and we're live as well on the Chronicle Telegram YouTube channel. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
At Nick Abraham Elyria Ford this month, you choose. Right now, get the Escape, Mach-E, Mustang, or Bronco Sport for only $399 a month with 0 down, or the Bronco, Explorer, or F-150 for just $499 a month. At Nick Abraham Elyria Ford, we make it that easy.
High school football in Lorain County is all about tradition, pride, and community, and that's what Stewart's Appliance is built on. For generations, Stewart's has been the family-owned appliance store you can count on for quality products and personal service. From refrigerators to washers, ovens to dishwashers, Stewart's has what you need to keep your home running. Proud to support Lorain County and proud to support high school sports. Stewart's Appliance, where community comes first.
Hi, Tim Elkhorn, radio voice of the Cavs. For several years, you've heard me talk about EcoTree Services on WEOL. Recently, I needed trees removed, so of course, I contacted EcoTree. They did an incredible job. The folks at EcoTree were timely, efficient, and the work was flawless. Take it from me, when your trees need attention or even require removal, contact EcoTree Services. Like me, you'll love their work. Find EcoTree Services online at ecotreeservices.com.
All right, back here on the Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show. Rakanushi, Jared Kozar here with you, kind of doing the hosting and producing gig here, right? Us two. So, again, excited to bring you guys this new format of the Wrap-Up Show. We're hoping to get out to the dealership as well as the season goes on, right? Kind of make that our home base of operations once we get everything ironed out here. But, again, big thanks to everybody tuning into this new format of the Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show. Starting next week, we'll do our best to get our coaches back on, right? We love hearing from those guys, kind of give them the chance to give their thoughts from the night before and all of that good stuff, which I think is always valuable insight, right? We can talk all we want, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of our folks, our listeners, our fans, they want to hear from the guys in charge, right? They want to hear from the head honchos of these high school teams, and that'll be the goal starting next week.
Well, in the relationships you've cultivated over the years with these guys, you know, you feel as if you're part of their circle of friends. They trust you, you trust them, and in terms of being able to come up with material, I think sometimes on that Friday evening, it's such an emotional response, and why should it not be? You know, the culmination of a good week's worth work that goes in, and you're able to enjoy the fruits of that labor. I think sometimes if you sleep on it, if you're able to, and certainly some of our guys go and hit that film right away, they might only be working on an hour and a half's worth of sleep when they talk to us. But I think there's a little bit of that subsides in terms of the emotions. You're able to reflect on things a little bit different and, share thoughts that you might not have thought about in the moment if somebody got a hold of you Friday evening. It's a little bit of a different set of circumstances.
You're telling me that Mike Elder would sound a little different on Saturday morning compared to Friday night, or I guess Friday morning compared to Thursday night in this week's instance?
He's probably yelling at a JV game. So
That's fair. That's very fair. That's very fair. So let's talk about some of these individual games. And I guess, Jared, we can go back to Thursday, right? The lid lifter here on the new WEOL.com and on the CT YouTube channel. Avon begins their state title defense dominating fashion. They have some fun at the expense of the St. Ignatius Wildcats, 40-14. And I guess just kind of a quick note on St. Ignatius. Like, we know they're kind of going through it right now. Last year they had some struggles. I think just one win under their belt last season. And with a new head coach compared to what they had for a long time over there, I think there's just some adjusting that needs to be going on over there at St. Ignatius. But they'll figure it out. I'm sure they'll get things turned around. But that night certainly belonged to the Avon Eagles. You guys had a lot of fun over there. Again, the first game with this new format. Tim Alcorn, Tom Evans, yourself, and Gary Pelter, the four-man crew that were over there. again, it's just a sea of people in that press box by the time I had left. We were still over an hour away from kick by the
Right.
time I had gotten out of there. So just kind of talk to me about that atmosphere. Again, a Thursday night lid lifter that had a pretty raucous crowd over there in Avon.
Well, and a lot of things happened. Timing is everything. We always talk about that in the broadcast world and in sports in general. Hats off to the staff over at Avon for being able to handle that. Some challenges that were in place, and in a good way. A redesigned press box, a renovated press box over in Avon. And I think that they had not a whole lot of time in terms of some of the new electronics and a new floor and a just not a new setup altogether, but just it had a new fresh coat of paint, basically. And for them to be able to facilitate that operation, again, a lot of media and a lot of people that are stomping around there, basically right up until kickoff. But everything worked out really well, and they did a great job. Obviously, if you're familiar with what happened throughout the game, and you caught up with some of our stories in the CT, the media circus of Shedeur Sanders stopping by.
That's right.
Yeah, that was another thing that I think that they handled that with a lot of style and class in terms of making that happen, because that was a detractor at the time. It was like, oh, well, this is a celebrity quarterback of the Cleveland Browns that's here. Certainly a very, very good look on his part as he interacted well with the fans and people around there. Had tickets in place for today's preseason game that he was, basically setting people up with. So
awesome.
Shedeur definitely won the battle of the press conference there in terms of being able to interact with the folks of Avon.
Was he posted up somewhere? Was he just kind of constantly making that walk around the stadium? I mean, that's kind of a weird.
In.
Okay.
And this is how you can differentiate yourself. And you know that Brown season. There's a preseason game today. Still a couple of weeks away until the NFL kicks off officially. But he was flanked by Greg Newsome, defensive back, and Newsome sort of just said, this is your show, man. I'm going to go sit in the bleachers.
Hey.
That's exactly what he did. He sat over in the bleachers where the student section is
Wow.
while Shedeur held court there. But, again, a good look on that young man's part, because he was definitely embraced by the community of Avon on Thursday night.
Well, we can tend to forget sometimes with these high-profile NFL players. They were once on those Friday night sidelines, very much a part of the action, just like everybody else. So, no, that's awesome. Good to see Shedeur making his Lorain County tour, so to speak.
Breaking down the game and some of what happened there, and Mike Elder caught up with Tim Alcorn and Tom Evans after the game and echoed some of these comments. One of the things that I took out of that I really liked hearing from Mike was, we're not looking at this as defending. We're looking at this as hunting. We've got to get back to what we're doing, what makes Avon work. And, we lost a lot last year from that loaded class that brought home a state title, but we got a lot coming back too. I think some of the special teams, which seemed uncharacteristic of Avon, might have been behind where they would like to be right now. They had a few things they're going to work on, but overall, after a pretty even game throughout the first quarter with Avon and Ignatius, the Eagles were able to take it to them in that second quarter and really open things up in the second half. Blake Elder looked every bit the part of somebody that could step in and fill that role of what you think the prototypical leader is at Avon of that offense, executing it at a high level, doing a great job leading his receivers. Of course, it helps to have talent around you, but certainly you've got to be, the conductor of that orchestra, and he did an excellent job.
Well, and you consider the signal callers that have preceded him there in Avon, right? Nolan Good last year, obviously. The year before, you had Sam DiTilio, I believe was the young man's name just before that. So a good lineage of quarterbacks there that have gone through Avon. And I think for Mike Wright, obviously Blake's his son, but he's not putting him in that starting quarterback position if he doesn't feel that he's the best guy for that job for this year's rendition of the Avon Eagles. And I think that's exactly the case that we're looking at. And I think you're spot on. He looked every bit the part. And how about Jacob Witherspoon? I mean, played a really good game, a really cool-looking interception, right, doing the 360 in the air. He does another one as he gets toppled to the turf. Thought he might take that one back to the house for a pick six, but, was going to Ohio State, has since changed commitment to North Carolina, but looks every bit the part of a Power 5 Division I college football secondary player.
Let's face it, those guys stand out when they make plays like that. You just look at people that have that next level ability. You can find a really well-coached, fundamentally sound, and athletic high school football player, but there's just things that they can't do that a guy like Witherspoon can, and it was on display and for everybody to see there on a big stage. And make no doubt about it. I'm sure there were overtures made to that young man about where you could play your high school ball at, and he decided, nope, Avon's the place for me. We're going to have a really good time here, and that defense is loaded. When you just look up to down in terms of people they brought back from last year, I think it's sort of a tale of two teams in that regard. Last year, the offense was explosive. Not saying they can't be again this year, but when you look at who they brought back on defense and their ability to make plays, and Witherspoon's going to play a little bit of both, I'm sure, but it was amazing going through the roster that you had from Avon provided by Mike Elder and his staff, and you saw guys that weren't necessarily returning starters but had a star next to their name, and the fact that they contributed on a high level in a lot of key situations last year, and you saw it go right back to form on Thursday evening.
Also want to shout out the folks at Avon. I believe they paid tribute to Jeremiah Kelly before the game, correct? So
emotional.
Very, I could imagine. Yeah,
and those young men are wearing stickers on the helmet
awesome.
in recognition of that. That's going to be a legacy number of his. His brother's wearing it.
Really? Wow.
His brother's wearing it. A younger brother on the team.
Wow.
And as soon as he's done with the program, they are going to retire that 73.
Wow, very cool, very cool. I mean, obviously, given the circumstances, nothing that you'd want to see, but that's they're doing what they can to pay tribute to that gentleman.
LLJK is the mantra.
Oh wow.
Live like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. All right. So Avon again, they get the big win over St. Ignatius, 40-14. Our other game that night, University School, they beat up on Brookside, 42-0. It's just a tough night for Brookside. I mean, I don't want to dive too deeply into that one, right? Obviously, the final score kind of indicates what exactly went down over there at Brookside, but confident that Scott O'Donnell and his guys will get things figured out. Wechter at quarterback this season, I think he'll just get better as the year goes on. He had a couple of really good-looking deep balls, just unable to hook up on a couple of them, but I think Brookside will certainly get things figured out sooner rather than later. Just looking at, again, some scores from last night, Strongsville getting the better of Avon Lake. Again, Aiden Stewart seemed to have a pretty monster night for the Shoremen. They get what would have been, again, the game-tying touchdown pretty much right at the horn. They go for two. They don't get it. But that's been a really good matchup to start the season the last couple of years. And, I think that makes it tough to kind of figure out what Avon Lake will be exactly this season. I know Strongsville, we do and we don't have familiarity with what they're all about, right? We know it's a solid, consistent program that can kind of go up and down at times. Maybe they're up this season. So I'll be curious to see how Avon Lake responds after kind of taking one. It's just a tough loss in the non-conference action here in week one.
A back and forth game all night long, and certainly the Avon Lake program showed signs of what it's been in the past last year. They play in that tough and tumble SWC, and they're proud to be a part of that. But, Strongsville, I think, is a really good opponent to start your season with. They're sort of sovereign territory for us in a way. They're not Lorain County, they're not Medina County, but it's almost like they're really
right there.
touch. Yeah, exactly. Kind of them and Olmsted Falls are in the same boat.
Right.
So, we do have some familiarity with Strongsville. Certainly, we go over their facility quite a bit for playoff games, and so we see them from time to time. Again, it's a good test to start where you're at. What I worry about for the Shoremen is coming off of one like that. I think they're on the road next week at Lake Catholic, I believe.
I think you're right, yeah.
And that's going to be a tough test too. So you always want to get the lid lifter, but just an emotional way to drop that one at the end.
One more here that we can talk about before we take a quick breather and take a break, regroup. Keystone knocking off Northwestern in dominating fashion. They blanked the Huskies 39-0 was the final score there. And Keystone was a team that I certainly had my eyes on heading into this season, right? You lose Shackelford, and he did just so much for them last season, right? They had dealt with him having an injury the year before and kind of had to take some L's that season. They bounced back last year. They win the Lorain County League once again, right? It was just them that had won it up until that year prior, if I'm not mistaken, right? Since the inception of the league, they had pretty much rattled off however many straight conference titles until the year that Shackelford had went down. Maybe I'm getting my wires crossed on that one. Either way, a very impressive win for Don Griswold and his Wildcats to start the season. Again, 39-0 the final score there. And what's interesting there, you look elsewhere, Columbia blanking Independence 30-0. I think that, it's early, right? It's week one, and, Firelands, I think, could make a case that, they took on a really tough Edison team, so I don't think that's indicative of the season that they'll have. But I think especially between Columbia and Keystone, again, that's not a knock on anyone else in the conference, but that could quickly turn into a very, very, very interesting conference race as this season goes on, because I think they displayed here in week one they are here and they are ready to go in 2025.
Well, the landscape of the Lorain County League is going to be a little bit different this year. When you look at the race last year and what it was, you had Keystone there, Columbia there, Clearview there, right up until I think the second to last week of the season. So, you really had three horses. And again, we talked about it earlier, not indicative of the way that things are going to go for Black River 42-14, losing to Hillsdale. Kyle Clark always does well in conference and has his team in a position to either matter in terms of the race or play spoiler. Nobody wants to go to Black River in week 9 basically thinking to themselves, we're undefeated in conference and now we got to go on the road here. So that's a tough spot to be in too. But right now, and when you think about who we're familiar with and who's bringing who back and their philosophy and scheme, you're probably correct there that Keystone and in Columbia have emerged to be the front runners right now. And it's hard to say that week 1 you haven't played a conference game, but they're pretty special when you look at what they've done defensively and in both pitching shutouts.
Well, and in a week 1 where, you still got some sloppiness, right, from the summer, and you didn't maybe have all the time in the world to get things put into place. That certainly reared its head over at Elyria last night. That's not a knock on the Pioneers or the Wildcats of Mayfield, but, there was a lot of laundry hitting that field last night, just a lot of mental mistakes made by both sides. And I think, the story for a lot of teams early on in the season is who can minimize that stuff the best, right? Who can kind of get their group as a collective whole up to speed quicker than the others and really get their footing about them here in 2025. And again, Columbia and Keystone, they seem to be off on the right foot on that front. So why don't we step aside, take another quick break. We'll get to some sponsor thank yous here. And when we come back, we'll continue to bounce around the county, talk about a couple of different games. I really want to talk about Amherst at some point here this morning. I think they were a team that I don't want to say had question marks heading into the season, but new quarterback coming in inside Christensen. You get Michael Passarello in there as well over from Midview. So just some new faces, but a lot of returning faces for the Comets, and they've seemed to have blended everything together so far so good here after 1 week. So we'll be right back with more of the Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show. Again, Rocco Nucci, Jared Kozar here with you live from the Chronicle Telegram, and we are live on the brand new WEOL.com. Make sure you go check that out. We're also live right here on the Chronicle Telegram YouTube channel. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back.
Hi, Tim Elkhorn, Cavs radio voice. Recently, we had some trees removed. So again, singing the praises of EcoTree Services. In a few hours, EcoTree had removed the unsightly trees, cleaned the debris, and opened the area for a new fence. I can't say enough good things about the people at EcoTree. I've used them several times, always thrilled with their work. If you have trees that require pruning or need to be removed, contact EcoTree, a local business that deserves your business. They've earned mine. Go to ecotreeservices.com.
At Nick Abraham Elyria Ford this month, you choose. Right now, get the Escape, Mach-E, Mustang, or Bronco Sport for only $399 a month with 0 down. Or the Bronco, Explorer, or F-150 for just $499 a month. At Nick Abraham Elyria Ford, we make it that easy.
High school football in Lorain County is all about tradition, pride, and community, and that's what Stewart's Appliance is built on. For generations, Stewart's has been the family-owned appliance store you can count on for quality products and personal service. From refrigerators to washers, ovens to dishwashers, Stewart's has what you need to keep your home running. Proud to support Lorain County and proud to support high school sports. Stewart's Appliance, where community comes first.
Back here at the Chronicle Telegram, Rocco Nucci, Jared Kozar here with you on the season debut of this new format for the Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show. Again, if you're kind of just hopping on board with us here for our new season of high school football coverage here at the CT and on WEOL.com, it is an all-new WEOL.com. I think the folks that we had to help us out with designing that website and bringing it to life, they've really brought some juice and rejuvenation to the WEOL brand with the new WEOL.com, and it's really great. I mean, you go there each and every Friday night. Whatever game we have live streaming on YouTube will be displayed right there at the top of the page, so you don't have to go very far for that. You scroll down a little bit, you'll find our Stream 2, Stream 3 games right there, along with the rest of our broadcast schedule. You got all the stories, from whenever from the Chronicle Telegram on there as well. Kind of really your one-stop shop for everything Lorain County high school sports, and just, again, a really job well done for the folks that helped put that together, I think.
I would agree, and it's one of those things that when you're going through the meetings, you think, this sounds like a really good idea, and I hope it works, and I hope it comes out the way that this is going to happen. But there's always that doubt in the back of your mind until you actually see it populated that way, and just the integration between our products with WEOL.com along with the CT. And, there's going to be Gazette-based things, too, that we talk about, too. Again, don't sleep on Medina County. We want to be the voice there and make sure that people are still interacting with us that way as well. But, hats off to everybody involved that put that together. It started out as a, can we do this? Then it kind of morphed into a, there's a shell here. We have got a schematic, and we want you on that website. You want to be on that website because it's got everything it's going to make you feel comfortable and familiar with your area.
Yeah, so make sure you go check out that new WEOL.com, and, of course, all of our live streams right here as well on the Chronicle Telegram YouTube channel. All right, jumping back into just a couple of different games from last night, and we can start with one that we weren't at but ended up being a pretty big-time win for the Amherst Comets. Tom Thome and his guys, they beat up on the Blue Streaks of Sandusky 48-6 was the final score there. Again, this one was played at Avon Lake, so a big shout-out to the Shoreman folks over there allowing that game to be played in their facility. Amherst still putting the final touches, the finishing touches on the stadium and facility renovations over there. But again, Amherst with a new quarterback this season in Cy Christensen. He's making that jump from the Lorain County League to the SWC. So just a brand new set of opponents, a new league that can certainly take some acclimation. But and we'll see, once SWC play hits for Amherst, what that looks like for Cy. But so far so good. I mean, a 42-point victory over Sandusky, and maybe Sandusky's down this season. Not entirely sure what might be going on with the program there, but no matter how you slice it, that is a dominant, feel-good win for the Amherst Comets over Sandusky.
And you mentioned maybe they're a little bit down. We don't know. Lorain got them last year. They were able to get them. So that's good. We always want to see that happen. But historically, anytime Sandusky's paid a visit to a team in Lorain County, it's usually a pretty tough contest. And, the Blue Streaks are a storied program. Again, you don't know what their situation is. We don't follow them as closely. But the fact remains is that, all systems go at Amherst right now through 1 week in terms of what they were able to accomplish. I don't care what state of affairs that Sandusky program is in. It takes a lot to say, hey, we're going to install some new personnel and really kind of pick up where they left off last year as well. Tom Thome now has all systems go and has a plan in front. And he's not content to say we took a step and we made the postseason and we're in that middle tier of the Southwestern Conference. That's not on his agenda.
Yeah, and I mean, he told me as much. I had him on the Hey Coach podcast the other week, so I'll feel comfortable relaying kind of what he said since it's out there publicly already. I mean, he knows it, right? Like, to take that next step, you got to find a way to beat the Avons of the world, right? They're reigning conference champs. They won the state title, for goodness sake, last season. So, yeah, to take that next step, to put yourself firmly as a contender, that's the kind of game that you got to find a way to not only just compete in, but find a way to win at the end of the day as well. Whether that happens this season or not for Amherst, we'll have to wait and see, right? Obviously, the attention for Coach Thome and his staff is 1 week at a time, and that matchup will get here when it gets here, right? But all in all, just a really good start for Amherst, and the Comets have it rolling. I mean, Tom Thome walked into a situation where things were down, that there was a lot of disgruntlement throughout the program and just sort of where things were, but he's really got it turned back around, really got it going in the right direction. He's got kids bought in. They're getting into the weight room, right? We've talked so much about how that's just a big-time difference maker for so many of our schools. Brian Morgan at North Ridgeville, he's maybe the biggest proponent of that, right? Matt Wilson at Elyria, he's told me about their new sports performance program that they've got put in where kids can lift throughout the day in school as part of like their curriculum, right? So it just makes a world of difference when your guys, they just look like football players too, right? That's what Coach Morgan told me on the phone last year, maybe the year before. He says, Rocco, guys walking around the hallway, they used to look like football players, but what these guys do. They play football when you look at them, and that just makes a world of difference.
I think some of the guys you mentioned there when you're talking about the SWC and guys that we have, pretty good relationships with, we're familiar with over the years, with the common denominator there, even if you look at something with Elyria where they haven't had the success those other programs have, but they're trending differently. We'll talk about your game in a moment too. Values, Rocco. Those guys all have a shared value of what it means to build a team, have that discipline and commitment. And those are things that you can see when things aren't going the right way. There's nothing to lean on. And, I think for the kids at Elyria, it might not be a great season, and they certainly had their struggles last year. But you can always take away values and integrity, and I think that they're building that, they're instilling that, and that's a lot harder to do than you think.
Yeah, no question about that. So, let's look at my game from last night, if we could. Mayfield comes to town. The Wildcats knock off the Pioneers. 20-3 was the final score. And just to quickly talk about Mayfield, and I know they're not necessarily in our coverage area at all, but they had a freshman quarterback in Dario D'Agostino. His older brother Danny is also on the team. He starts at wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, had a nice couple of catches there. But Dario D'Agostino, he had what essentially on back-to-back drives were just beautifully thrown, high arcing touchdown passes. One was up the far sideline, one was up the near sideline. He had a 67-yarder. The next one was a 49-yarder, if I'm not mistaken. But the success rate of some of those deep balls of 30-plus yards downfield at the high school level. The pro and high school level, those are kind of a low percentage, high risk, high reward type play. And he threw back-to-back beauties to start that game. Wildcats got off to a 14-0 start, and Coach Ross Bandiera from Mayfield, he told me on the phone earlier in the week, Dario is a freshman, right? Like, don't get that mistaken. He is just a freshman, but doesn't really look or play the part, and he certainly didn't. Like, physically, stature-wise, does not resemble a freshman. Just the quality of passes that were coming off his arm were certainly not indicative of him being a freshman, but he is, and I think that's something that Mayfield is going to use to their advantage in the coming years. The fact that they have a just high-caliber varsity quarterback, and they've got 3 more years of him after this season. So really dominant performance there for Mayfield. They had a good couple of running backs, and Brody Colello, I believe was the young man's name, along with Ben Corrett. So I'll be curious to kind of follow along with Mayfield on the side of things this season and just kind of see where they end up. But talking about Elyria, right? We've talked about them a lot this preseason. They've used that social media hashtag The Climb. They've made no bearings about it. They're not trying to hide from the fact that they have struggled in recent seasons, and they didn't win a ball game last year. And so this season's all about getting that win, getting that monkey off your back. It literally is the climb up from the basement to try to get out of there, and Coach Wilson will tell you as much. But didn't quite happen last night for Elyria, and I know they've got some bumps and bruises across the roster and some pretty important pieces too on that front that they'll kind of have to try to manage and navigate this coming week, because you've got Lorraine next week, right? You don't really have time to sit back and feel sorry for yourself. You've got what's maybe right up there with Avon and Avon Lake in terms of Lorain County rivalries, Elyria and Lorraine, and so you've got to get things turned around in a hurry this week and get things figured out. But it was really just the offense, I think, last night for Elyria that struggled. Quarterback Antonio Pride, I think he's going to have a really nice season, but there was a number of occasions where he was just running for his life a little bit, right? Trying to make plays with his legs, get out of the pocket more often than not, and credit the Mayfield defense for kind of stymieing that offense. But for the Pioneers, I think you just got to find a way to get some points on the board and go from there, because defensively, they looked really good at certain times last night.
Well, and that was one of the things, and I caught up with that game a little bit after our game when I got home. And it's one of the things you can do now. Go back to that Your Chronicle YouTube, and you want to take a look at that, and you can catch up with that game. You're right. They fell behind early, and you think to yourself, well, this could get rough. And it never really materialized in that fashion. So give Coach Wilson and the Pioneers credit in that regard, because they were able to say, and you're right, talented. I mean, it was just early on in the game, long touchdown pass, and that can just shoot your confidence right there. If you're a defense, you're like, wow, that happened. We let that go. And then it happens pretty fast.
The very next drive, right.
So you find yourself in a hole, and I never really got the impression that they were completely out of that game.
No.
Until late in the fourth quarter. Obviously, it wasn't going to happen for them. But the fact of the matter remains is that it's a lot easier to fold up the tent and say, it's not our night. We'll figure it out. Now, you mentioned they go to Lorraine, so they're on the road against a Lorraine team that hung tight with Maple Heights. That was a 14-13 game at the half. Some issues, maybe cramping and unavailability of some players in the second half might have caused that to get out of hand. And maybe Lorraine rectifies that throughout the week this week. That's always tough early on. I know it wasn't a hot night by any stretch of the imagination. The last couple of nights have been pretty comfortable, but just conditioning, doing the right things, and making sure that you're in game shape is something I think maybe the Titans will focus on and recommit to this week.
Well, there were certainly a lot of cramping issues last night at Elyria, too, between both teams. So I think that's just something that, we pretty much we see it annually, right? These first couple of weeks, and, really through a little bit of September as well, depending on how the weather shakes out. So let's talk about your game as well last night. Our Stream 2 game, our audio-only game. Midview goes to Demon Country. They beat up on Westlake 48-14 was the final score there. And I kind of asked you walking in here, that more indicative of what Midview will look like? Is that more indicative of Westlake maybe being quote-unquote down this season, right? But, I mean, you just look at that final score, and I haven't gotten a chance to really dive into the recap here in the Blitz, but all signs point to Midview maybe having a pretty strong team this season.
Well, I saw a very confident Midview offense yesterday, and they scored on 5 consecutive possessions.
Wow.
When you can do that, you can dictate the pace of a lot of games. They ran the ball well. McMahon, solid performance. There's a returner from last year, Shea Williams, coming back from an injury, showing his athleticism. They connected on a 30-yard touchdown pass, Shea Williams, on a 4th and 20 play. Just they were kind of in no man's land. We're not going to kick. We don't know what to do. Let's sling it. and again, 6 points later, they were going up. I think at that point to make it a 28-14 game. And so you look at where Westlake was, there's numbers on that sideline. The program, again, struggling a little bit, but certainly they have people out there that want to participate, so it's going to be a matter of finding that talent. But I think for Midview, it was just, I heard this, and it sounds generic, but it's not something you can look at and take for granted. Stay on schedule. That's a term that they use, and they really did that last night. They were able to essentially come out there, run the ball, I don't want to say at will, but just set the tone. And they made plays. They did a decent job of executing. Not a lot of penalties in the last night's contest. And so for Jack Armstrong, year 3, I think he kind of looked at that as, this was what we envisioned. This is what we designed. We went out there and we executed, and he was pretty proud when he caught up with Rob and Tom during the postgame.
Yeah, I always enjoy catching up with Coach Armstrong when I can. I'm sure you guys had a great chat with him last night after the game because he is a Midview guy, right? I mean, He went through that school. He went through that program. So this whole rebuild, and I think it's fair to call it that, right, given the situation he had when he walked into to what he's gotten it to now. There was a lot of personal pride as well as the professional side of it, right? Obviously, it is it is his job to be the high school football coach over there at Midview, right? But I think there is a certain level of personal pride that he takes with that as well, and he makes that known each and every week when we talk with him. And just very, very cool to see them get off to a strong note here in 2025. Again, knocking off Westlake 48-14 at the final score there. So again, a lot of action obviously across the county last night. We got things started on Thursday night with a couple of games, more action last night here on the WEOL network, and just looking to make this thing bigger and better as the season rolls on. So why don't we step aside, take one more time out. When we come back, we'll put the final touches here on the show, maybe bring you a preview of what's to come next week here on the WEOL network, and we'll wrap up the first edition of the 2025 Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show. You guys are watching live on the brand new, all-new WEOL.com. Make sure you check it out. We're also live right here on the Chronicle Telegram YouTube channel. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back.
At Nick Abraham Elyria Ford this month, you choose. Right now, get the Escape, Mach-E, Mustang, or Bronco Sport for only $399 a month with 0 down, or the Bronco, Explorer, or F-150 for just $499 a month. At Nick Abraham Elyria Ford, we make it that easy.
High school football in Lorain County is all about tradition, pride, and community, and that's what Stewart's Appliance is built on. For generations, Stewart's has been the family-owned appliance store you can count on for quality products and personal service. From refrigerators to washers, ovens to dishwashers, Stewart's has what you need to keep your home running. Proud to support Lorain County and proud to support high school sports. Stewart's Appliance, where community comes first.
Hi, Tim Elkhorn, Cavs radio voice. Recently, we had some trees removed. So again, singing the praises of EcoTree Services. In a few hours, EcoTree had removed the unsightly trees, cleaned the debris, and opened the area for a new fence. I can't say enough good things about the people at EcoTree. I've used them several times, always thrilled with their work. If you have trees that require pruning or need to be removed, contact EcoTree, a local business that deserves your business. They've earned mine. Go to ecotreeservices.com.
At Nick Abraham Elyria Ford this month, you choose. Right now, get the Escape, Mach-E, Mustang, or Bronco Sport for only $399 a month with 0 down, or the Bronco, Explorer, or F-150 for just $499 a month. At Nick Abraham Elyria Ford, we make it that easy.
All right, back here with the final segment of the first episode of the 2025 edition of the Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show. Again, do want to thank all of our sponsors for jumping on board early on this season. Nick Abraham, Elyria Ford, of course, Eco Tree Services, Stewart's TV and Appliance. You just heard from all those folks right there. And then Valley Chevrolet as well, State Route 18 over in Wellington. They'll be hopping on board with us as well this season. So big thanks to all of those folks. Again, kind of a new format, new season for us, new way of going about our high school football coverage with the Chronicle and WEOL.com. But really appreciate everybody hopping on board and supporting the new product. So, again, a lot of different action that we recapped from last night, a number of interesting results. Always really curious to see how week one of the non-conference shakes out, and I think we got some answers, and then we got some more questions following last night's action. So we'll see how things roll along here in week two. Speaking of week two, Jared, why don't we talk about some of the action? We can start, I guess, first with the games that we'll have on the WEOL network. We've talked about it a little bit already. The rivalry, Elyria going to Lorraine next Friday night as the Pioneers will go to Titan Country to renew that rivalry. And I think that's both teams with more question marks than answers here after week one, right? You kind of mentioned Lorraine battling some cramping issues in that second half, things getting away from them against Maple Heights. But for Elyria, kind of a similar story, right? They took some bumps and bruises. That game against Mayfield was in the balance for a while. Eventually, like you said, late fourth quarter, you just kind of realized it wasn't going to happen for him. But you got two 0-1 teams that really would like to avoid going 0-2 after next week.
Right, and there's a lot more on the line than just the record in terms of capitalizing on, as you mentioned earlier, one of the better rivalries in the county in terms of the records don't necessarily matter. This one's for pride. It still means something in Lorraine and Elyria when those teams get together. So that one's going to be a special atmosphere to be a part of over in Lorraine. I'll be on hand for that one in Titantown.
And then our Stream 2 game over on WEOL.com on the WEOL network, the Stillman Cup. Very, very excited to bring you another edition of the Stillman Cup as Vermilion goes to Firelands. So it was just last year, right? This one was supposed to be played at Firelands, and then they had the issue with the water on the field and all that good stuff, or maybe not so good stuff if you're Ty Stillman over there in Firelands.
And we've been at Firelands, and his field looks tremendous.
It does, yeah. We made sure to point that out.
We can tell you that he's in good shape over there.
He is. No, Ty was. We went over there and did some site testing earlier this summer. Ty was great. Yeah, he let us in. We, ribbed him a little bit about the field, but no, he's got it going over there at Firelands, no doubt about that. So we're excited to see what that one looks like. And that's another one where, Vermilion, two different sides, I guess, of the equation going into that one, right? Vermilion, they're feeling great this morning. A 1-point narrow victory over Margaretta. You get the new season started off on the right foot, and for Firelands, you got to regroup in a hurry, right? 42-6, you kind of take one on the chin against Edison. Now, as pretty much everybody that knows about high school football will tell you, that is a darn good Chargers team, and that is not something where you hang your head after losing to Edison, because they do that to a lot of teams. But again, it's one where you got your big-time rival the following week, so you don't really have time to sit and mope, and I'm sure that's what Coach O'Rourke's message will be this week, and we got to get things turned around and in a hurry. And then our Medina County matchup next week on WEOL.com, Stream 3. Keystone goes to Cloverleaf, in this interesting because Cloverleaf, they take a 41-0 loss. Keystone wins 39-0. So again, two different sides of the coin right there. Keystone feeling great about where they're at after week one, and Cloverleaf is certainly looking for answers after being blanked and then giving up 41 defensively.
That's the best description you can come up with there, Rocco. Looking for answers is that Cloverleaf program. And, we caught up with Rick Nolan, last week, and he was letting us know, hey, Rick Nolan, the Medina Gazette, said, hey, this Buckeye team is right back to where they were. They've lost some pieces, but what the returners and what they're picking up and bringing in, he's like, they're gonna finish right at the top of their league. Don't make any mistake about it. So maybe it was just a buzzsaw situation last night that Buckeyes that good. Keystone's no slouch either.
Yeah, no doubt about that at all. A couple of other matchups that'll happen next week that should be interesting. Amherst goes to Buckeye,
right.
And so those are two teams that are also feeling really good this morning. Big-time dominant victories for both, obviously, Buckeye, as we said, beating up on Cloverleaf. Amherst gets the big-time win over Sandusky, 48-6 was the final score. So these are two seemingly high-powered perennial offenses that, who's going to get a stop, I guess, in that one next week?
To me, that's been a tremendous series since Coach Thome has taken over at Amherst. Of course, Greg Dennison entrenched over at Buckeye. He's a staple there. But those guys have had back-to-back really good games when you think about non-conference football in this area. And Amherst going out to Buckeye, that's relatively big school going to visit the small school, but those matchups have not let down.
How about the Avon Eagles here, Jared? Any idea what state they'll be playing their game in next week?
I am well aware they'll be in Florida. I don't know who they're playing in Florida.
Oh, come on.
They are in Florida.
Yeah.
And, I think Mike Elder wanted to get the buses going on Friday night.
Yeah.
Said, let's just get
I
going
would.
right now.
Yeah. Spruce Creek is where they'll be traveling to.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about Spruce Creek? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
What I can tell you is that basically every 4 years you're in a situation in Avon where you're making that trip. So at some point, somebody in that program, if you've made the commitment to be there for 4 years, you're going to go to Florida. It's part of the process.
Elyria Catholic going to Mayfield next week, so Mayfield will.
A little bit familiar there.
Yeah, they'll complete their Elyria tour, right? I guess they'll welcome in EC next week, but yeah, they face Elyria, now they welcome in EC. So the Panthers, I think Coach Chase Ferris, they're getting it figured out slowly but surely. It seems like it's just all about getting the results, right? You can talk all you want about, we're getting things put in the right direction. We've got the guys, we put in a good summer, all that good stuff, but ultimately the fans want to see results on Friday night. And that's not, a shot at him or anything like that. That's just kind of what it is with all of our teams.
2-hour road trip. They put up some points last night. It wasn't enough, but the thing is that I think that Panthers team, when you look at, that's a lot of points to put up in a defeat. You never want to see it happen that way, but you can feel good about some of the things. You're going to have good film. And you can capitalize on that, hopefully, in a rebound.
Absolutely. So, again, a lot of interesting matchups to look forward to across in and out of Lorain County next week. Again, our 3 games on the WEOL network. Elyria at Lorain, that'll be our YouTube game right here on the Chronicle Telegram YouTube channel, also on WEOL.com. Our Stream 2 game, the Stillman Cup, Vermilion goes to Firelands. And then our Stream 3 Medina County matchup, as always, it'll be Keystone at Cloverleaf. So 3 really great games for you on the WEOL network. And, of course, a lot of great action in and around Lorain and Medina County. So, Jared, job well done this morning, my friend. Again, kind of a all-hands-on-deck effort, sort of flying blind heading into this morning's Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show, but I think we've done a good job of kind of piecemealing this together. And, again, really want to thank our sponsors for hopping on board and trusting with us. Nick Abraham, Elyria Ford, Eco Tree Services, Stewart's TV and Appliance, and then Valley Chevrolet over in Wellington. Just a big thanks to those folks as well.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, all on this side of the table.
There it is.
In terms of how that works. But, we're happy to be back. We're happy to, bring you this, and it's only going to grow and evolve. That's the thing is, give us an opportunity to make this the product you're accustomed to and even exceed those expectations. We're going to do it.
That's great, Jared. We'll get this all cleaned up for you afterwards. So, again, big thanks to all of our sponsors. Big thanks to everybody tuning in. Congrats to all of our winning teams last night, and to those who did not get off to a 1-0 start. Here's hoping that they can get off onto the right foot starting in week 2. So, again, for all of our sponsors, again, Eco Tree Services, Stewart's TV and Appliance, Nick Abraham, Elyria Ford, Valley Chevrolet in Wellington. For Jared Kozar, I am Rakanushi saying thank you for watching another edition of the Nick Abraham Saturday Sports Wrap-Up Show on WEOL.com and on that Chronicle Telegram YouTube channel. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. We'll see you guys next